That's an stay with us. The cost of diesel per litre is expected to increase from 800 naira to 1,500 naira within the next 2 weeks. This was disclosed by the Natural Oil and Gas Suppliers Association on Tuesday during a media briefing in Abuja. According to them, the cost of diesel will hit the roof if nothing drastic was done to curtail the current challenge faced by importers of the deregulated commodity. We'll take a look at the impact of this development on businesses and economic activities. And for further analysis, we're joined by Sydney Akimoladu, the CEO, Pay Solar. He joins us now. Hello, Sydney. Good to have you on board.
Hello, good morning, and thank you so much for having me.
We're glad to have you join us. All right, we're looking at the position of the marketers. They are saying that the price of diesel is expected to rise from 800 naira to 1,500 naira in the next 2 weeks. Now, what do you suppose will be the implication of this on businesses and economic activities?
Okay, thank you so much. The news came to us, especially those of us in the energy sector, as a very big surprise, because before now, let's take a little bit look at the history. We've seen this, gone across almost all the petroleum products, petrol, diesel, aviation, fuel, and the rest. And it looks like there's no end in sight. And so now the marketers are, shocking us with this news. And what do I say? It already hell for business people, so to speak, for lack of a better word. And now they want to add more salt to the injury. What I think is government should start making consultations before these things get out of hand. I know people who fly airplanes from across the states in Nigeria. It's been going from one increase today to the other, and the same thing now is applying to those of the other counterparts in the manufacturing sector, especially with the SMEs. Of course, not a lot of SMEs can do diesel, but again, what happens to, like they say in our local proverbs, what affects the eyes will eventually affect the nose. So if we're seeing this, happening to diesel, we're already seeing fuel scarcity in Abuja, and it's already hitting some parts of the north. Then, of course, it won't be much time before all of this. So what it means is we're looking at an increase in production, and of course, when you see increase in production, it's the last mile users that actually feel the brunt of it the more. And so it means that there will be another shoot in the price of goods and services. There will be shooting in the price of logistics and transportation of these goods and services to the people. And of course, that will also do a great blow for already damaging inflation rates that have gone from not just a single digit to a double digit, but even to a much more higher digit, as close to something between 16, 17 or 18%. So with the already harsh economy, I don't know where Nigerians will be looking up to, but it is time for government intervention to be real and not just paying lip service.
All right, looking at this, for the marketers to say that there will be an increase, there must be reasons for this. So what are these reasons and how can they be addressed to start with?
I usually say a government that, apart from the very sole responsibility of government, which is to protect the lives and property of the citizens, which of course you would agree with me that this government has not fared very well in that regard. A lot of insecurity issues. It would be very, very bad to now add hunger and poverty to the people. So, but this is the truth. As a government, there's been a whole lot of lack of preparation, lack of planning, towards things like this. The fact that we are if not the biggest or largest black nation in the world, with about a population of about 200 million, and it's increasing. People are getting married and children are giving birth to every day, and so you can expect that if a government that is proactive, then we should have been looking at all this, in time past. But again, this is where I'm even going to. In other nations of the world, let's even look at countries like Russia and Ukraine that are currently in a civil war, you would understand that these are nations that understand what it is and what it takes, to do oil business. Not the way we're doing it here in this part of the world. And even if you go into the Western world, you have nations that have reserves. What I mean by reserve is that there are tanks, places of storage where the country in itself should plan for rainy days and have storage for whether it's petrol, diesel, aviation fuel, or whatever it is. You'll be amazed that a country like Nigeria can't even boast of any reserve at all. So that is already planning to fail, And so then we're also very import dependent. Now federal government is complaining that the war in Russia and Ukraine is one of the major reasons why we're affected. But again, come to think of it, are we not also an oil producing nation where our refineries, the other time the federal government talked about the overhaul of the refineries in Kaduna, Port Harcourt and Warrior and the rest of it. But again, we've not seen anything. It's been all talk, no action, and that in itself is even on one hand. Then in recent times too, we've seen also that the NMPC, that the sole regulator of the sector, has not even contributed a single dime to the revenue allocation or federal accounts in several months. So where do we even have money to buy, to store? Where are the storage facilities? What is government doing to help, those who play in this sector, whether it is in form of incentive, tax reliefs, subsidies, whatever it is? We're not seeing all of that. In fact, what is happening to us as a nation now is that we're almost like in an auto cruise kind of situation where every attention is, on the politics of the day towards the 2023 election, and governance has been, relegated to the back seat.
You've said a whole lot there. I think we'll come back to some of the things you have talked about and all. But then the national president of Nogasa, that's Bennett Korea, was talking about the fact that about 75% of filling stations in Nigeria have gone out of business. Now, that is huge. That's on the one hand. And then on the other hand, no diesel to take fuel to their stations. And then he was stating clearly that there is availability of fuel, but the cost of bringing it to the stations was too high. Is government doing enough to tackle this issue? Or is it that this is not what government should do? Is this what the private and the players in the industry should do? What exactly is the problem? The other time we also talked about how that government is talking about modular refineries and having the turnaround maintenance of the existing refineries. But even as we speak, we're not seeing any result. What exactly is the problem? How do we tackle these issues?
Fantastic. Just this morning, I think I overheard on the radio that what's it called, the Minister for Power, because of course, like I said, it's a simple case. Whatever affects the nose affects the eyes. So we're having petroleum product crisis that also has affected electricity supply. We've had the quick collapse several times over this year, and that's like the largest, in a single year since the history of this nation. So, of course, again, you know that majority of the bulk supply of our electricity is from, gas power stations that are spread across the nation. And so we're seeing that also affect, electricity supply. So what it means is we need to tell ourselves the truth. The willingness of government to address this issue has been more of a lip service. There is not been any real approach, to addressing this issue. And if you ask me, I say, but the government is putting in so much money is being expended on paper, as it were, and we're seeing it in the news, but why are we not getting the commensurate result? It will also go back to the fact that we're almost, regarded as a very corrupt nation. Why I say that is because we've seen people, should I say, steal, embezzle, or mismanage funds over the years. Nothing has been done. Nobody has been prosecuted. So it just tells you how much of seriousness that the government is not paying, to this matter. Again, when we hear people, I mean, recently we know the case of how you see threats from all of these agencies and, different people, players in the industry, threatening the government, oh, you didn't pay us this, there's no subsidy, and all of this kind of stuff. We don't need to get to all of that. What it does mean, this is it. Government should sit down with the people who are in this sector. The fact is that there are people who have solutions to the problems of this nation. But because of politics, because of corruption, because of lack of will, and all manner of things, maybe nepotism and the rest of it, we're not seeing people who are like the right pegs put in the square holes having to deal with this matter. And so that's why we're still joking about it, we're still glossing about it. And like I used to tell people, we keep saying to ourselves that we have oil, we have gas, but we've forgotten that these are just natural reserves that one day will begin to deplete, and then maybe in some time we may not see them again. So my question is, what is our government doing in terms of following the trends that other nations of the world are following? Do we have to depend on fossil fuels for our generation and all of that for a long time? Are we looking at new technologies? What are kind of research and development strategies that are put in place to encourage people to look at things that are much more less harmful to the environment? So these are things that we should be seeing. These are things we should be hearing. Not issues of they're doing maintenance on this. They're doing
we'll come to that in a moment.
And yet we don't get anything out of it. So that's what I think our government should be doing.
Yes, we'll come to that in a moment. We'll come to that in a moment. All right, let me butt in here. You were saying a whole lot about political will and all of that, and then when you were talking about that, what came to mind is that the only challenge we are having, really? How about the fact that, we have, I think you've also talked about the fact that you've talked about capacity by saying that we don't have the right people in the right places. Now, apart from these two issues, what exactly do you think the government can do? Because I still want to believe that there is something the government can do. Well, I understand that we are looking at the fact that maybe a lot of persons feel there is no political will, the right people are not here, or the right people are not there. But what do you think can really be done to address these myriad of issues that we're talking about?
I wish I heard your question correctly, but if I did, probably you are asking what some of the specific steps that government should start doing to addressing the current issue and all of that, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, fantastic. I think number one, first and foremost, the government should tell us what is happening with our refineries.
Okay.
That's the very, very first thing. We're exporting crude oil, then refining it in different parts of the world, bringing it back to our country, and of course, all of that would have affected, the landing cost and the rest. But just assume this thing is being refined at your backyard. The trucks that will bring it to the filling stations around you would have to travel miles and all of that. It will have to go through some, shipping badges and all the rest. So that would have in itself, addressed some of the cost issues. That's number one. Number two is the fact that we need to start looking at means of bringing this product to the doorsteps of the people, as it were, away from regular road logistics like we see. I mean, the Apapa issue is still very, very fresh on our minds. We see what happens in that area of Lagos almost every day. And majority of the trucks there about are not just trucks that are bringing in goods and other cargo materials. We're talking about trucks that are bringing in oil products, crude oil products, and the rest of it. So we need to start looking at how do we start using other means. Our railway system is there. Do we need to build pipelines? And if we already have these pipelines that can do, transport crude oil products from one region to the other, how are we enhancing and making use of technology to bring the best out of it? That's number two. Number three is the fact that the current dispensation has the president has the minister for petroleum resources, and that is seeing the kind of damage, because it's not easy. Even when we had Fashola was minister for works, housing and transport, it wasn't really easy for him to manage it, let alone a current president becoming the minister for petroleum. So we need area addressed. Let a substantive minister be put in place who would manage it and give us the best out of it. I think, without wanting to, flog these issues, these three issues, if keenly addressed, I think we'll begin to see some kind of light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to our oil and gas industry. I'm not forgetting also the petroleum industry that has been, passed back and forth. There needs to be an harmonization of that act and then its implementation to the letter. So I'll begin to see the benefits of all of that in our country and in the oil and gas sector.
All right, talking about the Petroleum Industry Act, I know some analysts have come up to say that there are some clauses there that we need to probably reward. We need to check some things there. But be that as it may, let's continue the conversation on getting things to work. Are there available alternatives or things that could serve as substitutes to ensure smooth running of economic activities and businesses? I remember what we were talking. You were almost alluding to some alternatives. What are these alternatives, if you may?
Fantastic. I have been an advocate for renewable energy for many years. I practice in the industry and I do a whole lot of advocacy and talks and all of that. So question is how, from our own end or from our own perspective, how do we begin to address some of these issues? Number one, the government in itself knows that there are business clusters spread around the country. We have even what they call the free trade zones and all of that. Such areas, can have their own private power plants, okay? And when I talk about private power plants, we're talking about power plants that can be, powered by whether gas and all of that in itself. And when those electricity are generated in such places, they are distributed for such costs. While the other parts, like the commercial regions and sectors of our states and all of that, can, run on renewable energy. What about, we have enormous sun rays and sunlight in this part of the world that is wasting by the day. We're not using them. Even some of the, projects that have been implemented over time, we've not seen much of it into the lives of the people. So what I want to tell some business owners and all of that, this is the time to begin to generate your own energy. And you say, how do I do it? You got solar, you got inverter systems that can run it. You may say, but it's expensive. But the truth is that you spend so much in the running your generator, foiling it, maintaining it, than what you will use to run your own private, power supply. And this is the good news about running your own private power supply. You could, at the end of the day, begin to sell the bulk of it to other people around you and begin to make money from it. So if we look at, decentralized power system, what we already have now in the nation, where there's just, one distribution company somewhere and is managing all of the people, we can begin to decentralize this by, number one, allowing states themselves, to begin to produce their own energy for their people. And that is something that's already a challenge in this country because it's on the federal executive list. States can't even do that. But as individuals, companies, organizations, and the rest of it, people should start looking at diversifying from using diesel and all of that and make use of other alternative sources like renewable energy, wind, water, whatever it is, to begin to power some sector, some part of their production. And I think by doing that, we'll begin to see a change from this narrative. And then we'll be, more reliant on our government, as it is over the years, and begin to do something for ourselves.
All right, thank you so much, Sidney Akimoladu, the CEO, Place Solar. Thank you for your thoughts on the show today.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
All right. Well, you're still watching Business Breakfast. We'll take a break now, and when we return, we have more for you. Don't go away. Stay with us.